Hello and good afternoon, CTS266 Section 840 students for the spring 2016 semester at Anne Arundel Community College. This is the Cisco Networking Academy CCNP Switch course, and this afternoon's video tutorial is going to be on Cisco Learning Labs challenge number 13, where we're going to go ahead and configure VRRP, and we're going to use load balancing. So this is going to mirror the activity that we just did. I kind of had to chuckle here. That we are again dealing with Gregory, a former colleague, and we've got HSRP configured, but now apparently the school policy has changed. They must use industry standard protocols when possible. So we're going to have to change our HSRP configuration over to a VRRP configuration, or the equivalent of basically switching from a Cisco proprietary standard to an open standard or an industry standard protocol, VRRP. Okay, so we are going to, and actually let's check and see. It's very possible. Do we have our same configuration here? We've had another activity there where this happened, and the HSRP was on there, and sure enough, we are literally on the same hardware here. And you can see there is the HSRP configuration that we had set up before. Let me take a quick look here. I think this is going to be exactly the same. Secure the VRRPs. Yeah, this is literally identical. So let's go ahead and walk through this as we would have with the HSRP config. So we're going to go into global config, interface Ethernet 01.11, and we're simply going to say no standby. So if I were to say do show run interface Ethernet 01.11, it is not going to pull it off. Do I have to say no standby 11? Let's see if that's what it's looking for. Yeah, so that's what it was looking for there. I needed the group number. So no standby 11. Let's go into interface Ethernet 02.22 and say no standby 22. All right, so that takes care of that. So let's jump back over to interface Ethernet 01.11 here, and we're going to knock out the Virtual Router Redundancy Protocol, the VRRP configuration. So I'm simply going to say VRRP 11 IP, and this should look very familiar because the commands here are almost identical. I'm going to assume we're using .1 still, and we should be. So you can see we've got a VRRP state change, right? Now, pay close attention here. Remember that virtual MAC address, 0 Baker. Remember that B in hexadecimal is equivalent to the decimal value of 11. So we've got that set up. Then let's say VRRP 11 priority is going to be 200. I like to use 200 as my priority. Now, you'll notice that we don't type in a VRRP preempt command. And so literally, at this point, we are done. We've made it the virtual master router. If I was to say do show VRRP, that's what it looks like right now for VLAN 11. If I said do show VRRP brief, that's what we have, right? So again, no relationship yet set up with router 2. We've still got to take off the HSRP config. But let's go ahead and wrap up here on, and actually, let's go ahead and put in the authentication right away. So we're going to do the decrementing as well as the authentication right now. So let's go ahead and say VRRP 11 authentication MD5 keystring is going to be ABC123. And again, I wouldn't use that keystring in a production environment. That's just the one that I'm using. And actually, let me back out here. So we're going to say track 1. Now remember, one of the major differences with VRRP when compared to HSRP is HSRP gives us that built-in interface tracking. So we can track HSRP interfaces, or track interfaces natively in HSRP. So here's what we're going to do. With VRRP, that functionality doesn't exist. So what we need to do is we need to come out and say track, and I'll use, I think we can use all the way up to 1,000. Yeah, up to 1,000. So we'll say track 11 interface Ethernet 00. And what are we going to track? Are we going to track the IP or the line protocol? So let's track the line protocol. So what we're saying there is that if Ethernet interface 00, if that line protocol goes down, then what's going to happen is we're going to go ahead and tie a VRRP statement on interface Ethernet 1.11 to basically say VRRP 11 track. Now, what are we tracking? We're tracking object 11, and this is the only way with VRRP that you can track. It's got to be objects, right? There is no built-in way to do this. So we're getting this duplicate IP, and that's okay. Because, again, we're seeing the duplicate IP from the HSRP router, router 2, and we're going to sort that out. So that's all right. So track decrement, and I always decrement by 51 to take it down to 149, because we're going to set the virtual standby or the virtual secondary router to have a priority of 150. All right, so that takes care of that. Let's say VRRP 11, and we're going to do, actually we did the authentication I think already. All right, let's see what we've got on the interface here. Do show run interface Ethernet 01.11. And there we go. So we've got our standby, or I should say our virtual IP defined. We have the priority defined. We've got our authentication defined, ABC123. And we are tracking object 11. And if object 11 goes down, and that's Ethernet line protocol on Ethernet 00, which leads out to... And actually, did I get that wrong? No, that's right. Okay, yeah, okay, Ethernet 00. Yeah, so if this line protocol goes down right here for any reason, we are going to decrement the VRRP master, virtual master priority by 51, taking it down to 149. Now let's go ahead and do kind of the same thing here on interface Ethernet 02.22. We're going to say no standby 22. I think I might have already done that. Let's check do show run int Ethernet 02.22. All right, so we've got kind of a clean slate here to work with. So let's go ahead and put in our configuration, keeping in mind that we are going to be the standby router here. So we're going to say VRRP 22 IP 10.0.22.1. VRRP priority, VRRP 22 priority is going to be 150. And again, we don't need to put the preempt on here because preemption is enabled by default. If I say do show run interface Ethernet 02.22, that's really all we've got on here. But let's make sure we add in the authentication. So VRRP 22 authentication MD5 key string and ABC123. All right, if we take a look at our interface there, now remember for VLAN 22 on router 1, this is going to be the backup, right? So, or I should say the virtual standby, virtual secondary standby for VLAN 22. So we're good here on router 1. So let's go ahead and save our configuration right now, and let's come over to router 2, who I'm assuming that IOU here is going to be kind enough. Show run interface Ethernet 01.11 and 2.22 that yes, our config is on here. It did not wipe it off for us. So let's go into interface Ethernet 01.11, no standby 11, interface Ethernet 02.22, no standby 22. And you can see there that both group 11 and 22 have gone from active to disabled because they are down. If we take a look at the interfaces here, actually, let's go ahead and say do show run interface Ethernet 01.11 and 2.22. All right, we've got blank interfaces to work with now. So let's go ahead and dive into interface Ethernet 01.11. Say VRRP 11, IP is 10.0.11.1. VRRP 11 priority is going to be 150, because remember, router 2 is the virtual backup, right, or the secondary. And then we have to get our authentication in here for VRRP group 11 authentication, MD5 key string, and ABC123. So what we should see here is exactly, we've gone from master to backup. So if I were to say do show VRRP brief, you can see that for group 11 that we are up and running, right? So group 11, our priority is 150. Preemption is configured. The owner column here, this OWN, if I come over to router 1 and if I were to say show VRRP brief, whoops. The owner column comes into play when you put the IP address of a physical interface as the virtual IP. And so you can actually do that. You cannot do that with HSRP, but you can do it with VRRP. And this is one of the things we talked about in class, is that really the use case would be if you were trying to conserve IP addresses. That would be one of the major considerations, to use the physical IP instead of using just a third IP address as your virtual. All right, so back over here to router 2. Now let's take care of router 2. It's the primary for, and let me check something here real quick, 01.11. All right, so we've got our VRRP group 11 IP, we've got our priority and our authentication. Now let's go ahead and take care of VLAN 22 or VRRP group 22, for which we're going to be the virtual master router. Again, we're doing this load balancing here where we're creating multiple groups, excuse me, and having one of the routers be the primary, or I should say the virtual master for each of the VLANs. So let's go into interface Ethernet 02.22. All right. So we're going to simply say VRRP 22 IP 10.0.22.1. VRRP 22 priority is going to be 200. VRRP, we don't need to put our preempt statement in there, but let's get the group 22 authentication MD5 key string in here. ABC123. And since we're the primary, we're going to have to go ahead and configure some tracking. So we're simply going to say track. If I do a question mark, you can see we could go all the way up to 1,000. So we'll say track 22. It's going to be interface Ethernet 00. Yeah, that's 00, I believe. And we're going to do line protocol. And then let's go back into interface Ethernet 02.22 and say VRRP 22 track. We're going to track 22, which is the object number. And if that line protocol goes down for that object, we're going to decrement by 51. And so this should pretty much do show run interface Ethernet 02.22. So we've got everything that we need in here from a VRRP perspective. If I say do show VRRP brief, okay, you can see we've got exactly what we want, right? For group 11, we're the backup. For group 22, we're the master. And you can see we have our group address here, and this is the address of the master. Let me check router 1, and let's see what it shows here. So let's say show VRRP brief, right? And so everything looks great. So here's what we're going to do. Let's come over to PC1, and we're going to ping that internet address. And I think they said it was 225. So 209.165.201.225. I was using a different address before. So let's say ping 209.165.201.225. And let's see, do we have connectivity? We do. Now, I'm going to try not to blow this up here. We're going to ping 10,000 times. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to shut down, go into global config and say interface. Let's make sure this works. 01.11 and shut. So here's what we're going to say. We're going to kick that off. We're going to let those pings go. We're going to come over here to router 1. And actually, it's not going to let us go. Oh, there we go. We got shut. So let's see what happens here on PC1. It already completed, but let's kick it off again. And so we still have connectivity, right? These 1,000 pings or 10,000 pings make it through just fine, even though, if I say do show VRRP brief, even though we are down, we are in the init state. And who is the master? The virtual master is router 2. So our traffic is now just simply going through router 2. If I were to say show IP ARP, you can see that for VLAN 11, right, who is the MAC address? What MAC address is coming back to us? Well, the MAC address is coming back as 11. However, remember that the traffic is going to be going to router 2. So if I trace it, and let's actually see here, let's do a trace real quick. 209.165.201.225. If I trace it, our hop should take us out through router 2. So in other words, we should be going to from PC1 across this link here to router 2 and then out Ethernet 00 on router 2. And you can see we just went to 10.0.11.3. So 10.0.11.3, if I come over to the job aids, you can see 10.0.11.3 is router 2, right? All right, so that's got VRRP up and working. If we take a look at our validation steps here, show standby was done. We did our show VRRP and VRRP brief. We even took down the interface. Let's take a look actually at show track. So we didn't do that. This will be a good time to say here, let's end out and say show track. And so what do we have? Well, we've got track 11, right? So we're tracking object 11, and you can see we're tracking the line protocol, and it shows line protocol is up, one change, tracked by Ethernet 11, and actually it is not up. The line protocol should be down because we oh, you know what? I forgot. Okay. Yeah, the line protocol is going to show is up because if I were to say show VRRP, let's see what it says. Yeah, the state is init. Priority is 200. Yeah, it never decremented the priority because, and I apologize, so let's go into global config here. And on router 1, I'm going to say, actually, it's going to be track, and we used 11 interface, Ethernet 00, line protocol. What I forgot to say was interface, Ethernet, or no, actually, that's right. I did have that. Hold on, do show run. Let me see if this is in here. I do have this in here. Yeah, there it is. Now they've got track 1. And okay, I see. I think they wanted you to use track 1 and I used track 11. Let's do this. No track 1. And let's see what happens here. So now we've only got track 11. Ethernet 00 do show VRRP. Yeah, state up, decrement 51. The problem might be that I used a different track and they're expecting me to use track 1. And let's see on router 2, because I never configured track 1 and they have it in here. Yeah, so it looks like it's already in here. But that actually that was from the that was from HSRP. So why is it not tracking? So it doesn't look like, let's say do show VRRP brief. It definitely flipped over, but it doesn't look like it's decremented. Do show VRRP brief. Whoops. Yeah, it doesn't look like it flipped over, but it didn't decrement. But our setup is correct. So this may be one of those IOU specific things here where it's not showing that it decremented. But again, we proved that it does flip over based off of the priority going below the virtual secondaries priority. All right, so this is going to wrap up, and let me double check here. Yeah, see, they're using track 1. I'm wondering if I broke it. by not using the same track statement. So it's very possible. And we've got our authentication set up and everything, so we're good. All right. So this is going to wrap up challenge activity number 13, where we were taking a look at VRRP with load balancing. All right. Thanks for watching, and I will see you tomorrow night.